In the previous video, we discussed the definition of resources and the implication of this in the energy industry. We left off that video by describing how to quantify these resources with stocks. This video will go more in depth with that concept and other related concepts to stock. So, like we stated before, stock is the natural resource that's quantifiable and ready to use for us to put in a process to create some sort of intentional product and comes along with byproducts. It's important to note that only some natural resources have the ability to be stocks. For example, all fuels can be stocks. That's why we find them so vital to have, because we're able to store them and use them when we need them. So, for example, coal would be the fuel that we want to use in a plant to make electricity, and gasoline could be the stock at a gas station, ready to use for us to fuel our car. There are other natural resources that are able to be stocks that aren't fuels, which we'll be discussing later in this video. So when the stock goes through a process, it's inevitably going to create byproducts, and some of this byproduct is going to be waste. This waste coming from the stock is known as an accumulation. So for example, if you had a stock of firewood because you wanted to create some fire, there's going to be some waste products like ash, water, and carbon dioxide. If nothing is done with these, that's waste, and therefore we call it an accumulation of waste. This waste, when it accumulates, could cause problems, like immense accumulation of CO2 does drive climate change. So if a stock is how much we have, the flow will measure the rate of how much of a stock is coming in, known as the inflow, versus how much is going out to the process, known as an outflow. Therefore, flow is essentially the rate of usage. So as an example, let's think of a car tank. That's the stock that's going to be holding the gasoline of your car for it to be ready to go when you want to start and use your car. So the inflow would be every time you refuel your car, and the outflow is every time you consume the fuel. So this, if you're wondering how much you're putting into your tank, rate per month, let's say, the rate of usage could be measured in liters per month. Therefore, the net flow would be how much is going out versus going in. For a car, the net flow would usually be zero, because the amount that you refuel for your car is probably the exact amount that you're going to be consuming. Remember that not all natural resources have stocks. Let's think of the energy flow, known as wind. Wind cannot be stocked for 1 to 3 months, let's say, to use readily for our turbine. We can only use it when it naturally occurs. Therefore, stocks can only really come from two places. They can come from places known as reserves or primary energy known as a dispatchable flow. So, for a natural resource to be considered a reserve, we must know that it exists. It must be economically viable to extract. And we need to have current technology to extract it. The next video, we'll be talking about reserves more in depth and how we end up discovering these reserves and other related concepts.